Now, if it wasn't already apparent by my amount of analysis videos and even my own other projects, I really like scary and just horror-themed content. But to be more specific, content that disturbs you, not scares you with a jump scare, or startles you with a loud noise. I think the type of horror I like is that one with constant dread and just this fear that never goes away. But mainly when it disturbs you to your core. Not that it startles you for 5 seconds and your heartbeat races up. I mean, you just sit there, disturbed, mouth covered, just shocked and terrified at what you're seeing. And with the rise of analog horror series such as The Backrooms, Mandela Catalog, Find Its Phrase VHS, Walton Files, this type of horror I think is making a bit of a comeback. And there's tons of other great ones that are older than these before analog horror took off. Petscop, in my opinion, is wonderful, being this mystery of a mentally fucking insane man making a video game about his dysfunctional family. Or you have Marble Hornets, which I've covered, and is the reason I'm now currently at 10k, so I more or less owe my success to this series. But with Marble Hornets, it was one of the first real horror series to involve Slender Man, or the Operator as he is called for copyright reasons, and the stuff that they do with the Operator pretty much got integrated into the whole Slender Man mythos on the internet. There are lots of great and old horror series out there, but there is one I feel like is just being left to rot, and I want it to not be left to rot. That would be No Through Road. Not only is, with the exception of Marble Hornets, probably one of the oldest found footage themed horror series I've ever found, but the horrors that go on with it, I've never seen done in anything else before. I mean, with all the other analog horror series, the threats are creatures. The Backrooms, it's the bacteria monster. Mandela Catalog, it's Gabriel and his alternate servants. In FNAF VHS, it's all the haunted animatronics and William Afton. In Walton Files, it's Bond, quote-unquote, and him trying to kill everyone and throw them into the animatronics. But what if the threat was the countryside?
Where's he? Steve! Get back in! Drive! What's what? What? What's the matter? Drive! Drive! It's not me. I can't. Turn the bloody lights! On January 15th, 2009, a video was uploaded on the account this guy. Yeah. The video itself was titled No Through Road, and the description reads this. On December 17th, 2008, 4 17-year-old boys were found dead in their car at an abandoned farm, 10 miles from their hometown. This video contains the unedited footage from the camera belonging to one of the boys, also found in the car. If you have any information regarding the footage, please contact us at the website given at the end of the video. That said website is a crime prevention site for the UK.
In the beginning seconds of the video, we see color bars you'd normally see on TV and the MI5 logo. As far as I was able to understand, the MI5 is basically a security service dealing with counterterrorism, crime, cybersecurity, just an overall big, giant security service in the UK. This right here basically tells us that this footage belongs or is now currently in the hands of the MI5. After this, we're given a little bit more information, and it becomes clear that it's probably the MI5 editing and probably showing us this video. On December 15th, 2008, 4 17-year-old boys from Stevenage, Hertfordshire, were reported missing by their families. On December 17th, their bodies were found at Broomhall Farm, 10 miles outside of Stevenage, in the car they had been driving. The residence was thought to have been long abandoned, but upon investigation, police officers found signs of recent inhabitants. The following video is unedited footage from the digital camcorder found in the car. This has been released with the family's consent in hopes of aiding the investigation. After this, we finally see the video footage and are met with 3 characters: Stephen, Ollie, Dave, and James. James is honestly kind of not really important, but Stephen and Ollie are fairly important. And I'm not really going to be commentating much because a lot of these videos are just them talking, so I will be skipping a lot, but I want to emphasize this. The acting and the conversations they have just feel really natural, and it's hard to describe.
Famous last words. Stingrays love foreplay.
Oh, they should say something.
Okay, I'm just going to stick this down here because I can't be fucked to keep moving it. Hang on, I'll see if it doesn't actually take many, except I can't move to the left.
Just wait till we're on the inside time.
Look at the car pulling to the left. Oh, this is a dead end. Oh no! Oh, my Coke spilled on my lap. Oh, it's cold.
As someone who makes horror-based content, I can safely say one of the hardest things with dialogue is making it sound natural. Like it's a natural conversation that you hear. That is probably the hardest thing to do. Small things like cutting each other off and talking a little bit before you get cut off, and other smaller details like stutters and long pauses are hard to recreate and to make it feel natural. And not only does the found footage part of this series help it make it feel almost like actual footage of a camera, but this combined with the conversations and the acting, especially later on when weird stuff happens, it just truly makes this series good. These 3 people feel like teenagers. They feel like teenagers just being dumb, doing shit, making stupid jokes, and as somebody who's a teen themselves, I can kind of confirm we act like this. Maybe American teens are a bit different than, UK teens, but out here in the country ran by a dementia-ridden raisin, we are pretty close to this kind of goofiness. As they're driving, trying to get home, they pass through a tunnel where there is a sign, and it says, "No Through Road."
Get it? It's the name of the series?
And while there, Steve just nonchalantly says,
I don't think we should be here. It's like a private road or something.
Okay, so I better clutch down and roll backwards. It's nearly 4:30. We need to get home, mate.
Steve tries to say that this is probably private property and they shouldn't be driving through here, but it's currently 4 in the morning for them and they really need to get home. And so, not wanting to really reverse out or not really know where else to go, they take the tunnel.
This is what? Nothing. That's full beams. What about this? Woo! Woo! Do it again!
Turn it back on.
Do it again!
There's like a bloke in the middle of the road.
Oh, no. Stop saying that because it will actually happen.
They all keep driving and then they come across a road sign. And it mentions 2 towns that they don't live near.
Beddington. That is no... I don't even know where that is. That's nowhere near us.
They're nowhere near Stevenage. They temporarily park the car and talk about how pretty much none of their phones are working and how Ollie's GPS has just decided to shit itself. Also, once again, the conversations and the dialogue in this are just so horrifically, accurate to how teenagers act. I mean, just look at this.
Because there are no lights in any direction.
Thank you.
Anyway.
That was so advertisement-like.
Stella!
Ollie, plans. What do we do?
I don't know. I'm scared because it's down to me because I'm driving the car.
Also, holding the camera to your face makes you extremely uncomfortable.
Oh, yes.
After this, Ollie has to go piss, and while there, they find a dead rabbit. Steven decides to go ahead and look outside for a bit to see if he can find anything. But suddenly, he seems startled.
What is he?
Steve! Get back in! Drive!
What's the matter, man?
Drive!
What's the matter? What are you saying?
Stephen explains that although distorted, he saw somebody just standing in the woods wearing a mask, and that would understandably scare anybody out lost in the countryside. Also, Ollie brings up a good point.
Really want to get home now.
Another car for like an hour. It's scary how it's kind of my responsibility to get us home as well.
They have not seen a single person, unless you want to count dead roadkill, out here. I mean, Steve saw somebody with a mask, but for all we know, maybe he saw a scarecrow and he just got really scared. I mean, shit, some farmers still use scarecrows. After driving for probably who knows how long, they come across a road sign again. It's the same sign they saw before. And as Steven comments, they have been going in nothing but a straight line this whole time. Sure, there's curves and bends, but nothing that would loop you back around. They keep driving in a straight line, hoping to just find something. Steve eventually comments that at this point they've been driving for about 2.5 hours. And I did some research on this. In the UK, during January, they have winter, kind of like us out here in the US. And during that time, the sun usually rises around 7 o'clock. If they got there at about 4, and they've been there for 2 hours, 2.5 specifically, the sun should slowly be rising by now. Maybe I don't know UK time zones well, but with the research I've done, the sun should be rising for them at this point. But the sun just isn't there. They keep driving straight, and then for the 3rd time, they come across that road sign. Keep in mind, they've been driving in a straight line, and they've somehow looped back here for a 3rd time. Steven checks the sign, and it is indeed the same sign for the 3rd time now. It's almost like time is looping for them, They decide to go and drive through Watton and see if they can get to Stevenage through there. They decide, since this drive's probably not going to end anytime soon, to turn on the radio.
You put the radio on?
Yeah, might as well. Hang on a sec, Ollie, I can't get the seat, mate.
What is this?
Oh, it's like the scariest thing ever.
What station was that?
Pirate.
FM? I don't know, it's never been
So
on
it was
before.
Pirate, that was some
Does it, like, worry you guys that we haven't seen another car for about 2, maybe 3 hours now?
Eventually, they come across lights, cars, and realize they're finally back on the way to Stevenage. You can immediately tell by the tones and the jokes they make they're already so much happier that they're getting back home.
We're finally getting there.
Oh my god, headlights.
Oh,
love.
car! Jesus.
Hello.
I wanted to be a baker, but I couldn't make the dough.
Because I've got fucking leather hands.
Stevenage.
They're finally out of the countryside with whatever the hell was going on with that road. They're finally getting close to home. While there, Ollie decides for a joke to turn off his headlights. He turns them back on and then...
Turn the lights on.
What the fuck?
How did we get here? We were just on the phone.
Just reverse, Ollie. Reverse, go on.
What do we do?
Just don't sit here, I don't want to sit... Oh, for fuck's sake.
All of the happiness and relief they had is just snatched away right then and there when they get back to that tunnel. And like Steve says, this should be physically impossible. They were just on the road mere seconds ago, and suddenly they're back on this dirt path that led through a tunnel. Ollie tries to start the car and put it in reverse, but the car just won't start, and it won't go into reverse. And then the headlights start to flicker.
What are you doing? Turn it back on.
It's not me. I can't.
Turn the bloody lights on! What the fuck? What? No! What are you doing?
No, please! No! Please! 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 No! 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 Dog. Handle it. Hot! Beans! Cool!
So, that last part was a lot to digest. Let's go ahead and slow down and try to look at it. Firstly, although it was hard to see, we can clearly see the man in the mask trying to reach into the car, but then at one point, they're suddenly back on the road with the headlights. And, I mean, shit, if they were able to go from the road to the tunnel, perhaps the same thing happened from the tunnel to the road with headlights. And it seems like the car itself was driving, even though just earlier they said they couldn't get it to work. And then after nearly hitting the man in the mask, the car suddenly teleports back again to the tunnel. So it appears that whatever was causing them to loop and see that street sign over and over was also the same thing teleporting them around during that final scene. Perhaps something in the countryside, or maybe even the man in the mask, is teleporting them around, throwing them around just for the sake of its own entertainment. And as we can very clearly see, Steven is dead. He was beaten to death with his own camera, the lens shattering to where we can only just see broken glass and a little bit of his bloodied face. Something else to mention is that we very clearly are told at the beginning that this is unedited footage. The jump cuts are probably just Steven turning on and off the camera or pausing the footage. Cameras can do that. But those scenes with the glitches, I have a theory for what they could be, and it's going to sound really dumb. Most of these glitches occur, or seemingly occur, either while time is getting all messed up and they're getting teleported, or right before they go back to the street sign, or whenever something just strange happens or something is looping. The camera seems to glitch out or bug out. And I think that if the countryside is truly looping over and over, perhaps maybe even time itself explaining why they don't see the sun by what would be 7 in the morning. The time there is looping, perhaps, just like the countryside itself. And so perhaps the camera, trying to process that time is not really moving, glitches out, and so we see old footage and camera distortion and all that. Perhaps the camera distorting is simply the camera trying to process the concept of time just being messed up. And also, it says in the beginning, in the intro and in the description, that these boys' bodies were found near a farm. Well, whoever works at the MI5 must have just been really lazy that day, because 3 years later, No Through Road 2 came out. From the very beginning of No Through Road 2, we can tell that this is not the MI5 uploading this, or at least not the people that made this video. We are quickly informed that, unlike the first video, where this was released with the consent of trying to help the families of the missing children, this was released without their consent. It was simply just thrown onto YouTube. And if it already wasn't apparent, the description basically confirms that this is literally not at all the MI5. The description says this:
This is footage from the first of 2 tapes procured by the police following the event code named NTR2. I can only hope they do not catch me before I obtain the second tape.
We see after some driving that James is the one driving the car, and the one recording is a character named Dave. Now, the first video stated that 4 teens went missing, but as far as I'm aware, we only heard 3. So I'm going to assume that Dave simply just sat in the back and did not do anything. Maybe Steve said, "Hey Dave," and I didn't catch it. But as far as I'm aware, Dave just didn't exist in the first one. They stop by a dirt road, and it becomes very quickly apparent what they are doing. They are here to mourn over either the loss of Ollie or Steve, or probably both. The only real sound in this scene is the footsteps and wind, and that's about it. It's silent, it's subtle, and it just lets you sink in that they probably are still traumatized by that event. After silently mourning, James brings up something that happened after the whole incident.
And when you look at the video, you see me get dragged out first, before Stephen. I don't know how I got out there.
I don't remember anything.
Last thing I remember is flagging down that car and then being in hospital.
You never spoken to me about this before.
Anyone. After I got questioned at the police station, I didn't speak to anybody, not even my parents. I don't have any answers.
After this, we cut to driving and then just talking about Doctor Who, which reminds me how old this video is. Fun fact, when I was younger, I had a Doctor Who phase. I don't know why, I was just really into Doctor Who.
Episode of the new series, and it was really clever because there's the Doctor, obviously, and there's another woman who also time travels, and because they're meeting each other in different time zones all the time. Makes sense.
That's tight.
Each time they meet each other, they're meeting a slightly different version of the.
Went back in time to when you got up. Would you see yourself in bed, or would you be waking up again?
Well, if you know you've done something, if you know, oh, I walked down that street at that time on that day, and you specifically go back in time to see yourself then you will, yeah.
Unless you go back in time and then you are living yourself.
You see the yeah, there's a rabbit.
There's a tiny little rabbit.
They park their car and realize that they don't have any cell service out here. And you can see James immediately starts to get uncomfortable and a little panicked because, well, back when the first No Through Road incident happened, one of the first things that was weird was their internet and cell service cutting out. They keep driving and then James suddenly slams on the brakes. And it might be hard to recognize, but they're back on that dirt road where they went to mourn over Steve and Ollie from the beginning of the video. The countryside seems to be looping all over again. Dave seems confused and says, "Oh, we're just lost. We'll find our way back." Not realizing that until James turns the car on and faces towards the sign, they're back at that dirt road again. And then Dave, you could just hear him basically be silently terrified. Dave goes to check on the sign, and it is indeed a Bennington sign. And just like last time, when they were looping, Bennington seemed to be the place that kept showing up over and over. Also, to support my theory earlier about how the camera glitches are caused by the time itself looping, after they loop back here, they try to talk in the car, seemingly trying to joke to lighten the mood, and as they're talking, their voice and the camera bugs out. Most likely caused by what's causing the cameras to glitch in the first place, which I believe is the looping itself. They keep driving and try to lighten the mood with jokes and talking about Minecraft.
I found the red stone as well. I don't know what it is. Never used it before.
I've not found many other materials. cobblestone everywhere.
Yeah, I use that the most of the time. I think it's more precious than gold.
Yeah. Constantly.
Constantly using it, constantly making things out of it. Shit.
They keep driving and keep seeing that they're looping. And James says that if they keep seeing that sign, he's gonna take a right. They keep going forward, but every time they keep looping back to this one spot. Every time. James keeps going forward and probably some attempt to see that if maybe he just doesn't turn a little bit here or a little bit there, maybe he'll end up somewhere else, but he keeps looping back here. They check their phones again, trying to see if they have any internet or Wi-Fi, but it's dead out there. There's nothing out here. It's just a dead countryside.
It's dead out here.
Get back in the car.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, I have genuinely no idea how the fuck Dave did not see that. All I can assume is, here's an artist rendition. He was looking this way as the spooky mask man was facing him, and so while holding the camera forward, it caught that. That's all I can assume. That's my artist rendition right there. They keep trying to mess with their phones, cracking a joke here or there to attempt to lighten the mood. And as they're working on their phones, trying to figure out what to do, we can see something or someone in the background. James talks about how he came to this place just to mourn, because he felt like it was respectful, like it was right. And he's starting to regret even coming here to mourn.
If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have come, but I felt like I owed it to them.
Reckon it's a good thing you came back.
I just had to pay my respects.
Do you think it was worth it?
No.
Ah! Shit! Ah!
Stephen, wake up!
What's wrong? What's wrong?
Stephen.
Stephen.
He's waking up. He's waking up.
Stephen, it's okay.
Stephen, calm down. It's alright. Where am I?
After a moment, we see that James is wrestling with whoever this was. And if you couldn't recognize by the blonde hair and high-pitched voice, it's Steve. He's alive after 3 years. Still covered in blood from those 3 years ago, it seems. He's confused and startled about what's going on and why they're here.
Where was I? I escaped. I went through the bridge.
It's okay. He's gone.
I went through the bridge and then
It's fine. That's gone. It's in the past.
what do you mean it's in the past?
It's been 3 years.
Dave breaks the news to Steve that unfortunately they're caught in this loop again, and Steve is now with them. It then cuts to a shot of James comforting Steve, and it's just a little heartwarming in my opinion. Steve is just apologizing profusely, saying that it's his fault that everything happened, that he's sorry he ran away and left them, that he wishes he could change what he did. But James tell him, I went to an advanced English class, that's a fun fact. James tells him that it's okay. It's been 3 years, and their main goal right now is just getting the hell out of the countryside. And that's where tape 2 ends. We see some text explaining that this camera was found in its camera case. The camera itself was broken, but within the case was a second tape. This second tape, however, was severely damaged. The creator states that they are currently making efforts to repair this tape and see if they can fix it. Now, before we move on to No Through Road 3 and 4, which I'm counting 3 and 4 because 3 is 2 minutes long, how in the fuck did Steve survive for 3 years? And secondly, maybe I'm just weird and I don't understand how blood and gore works, but shouldn't he at least have washed his face, or the blood should have dried? And by dried, I mean turned dark red, not this bright color that it still is. And just how, in general, is he alive? He has been eating berries and hunting for 3 years? Did the MI5 and police just, suck at finding him if he's been alive this whole time? But also, it said 4 bodies were found. How is he here? Unless the MI5 was extremely stupid when they made that first tape, and 3 of them lived, and only 1 of them died, assuming it's Ollie, then what the hell is going on? Is time and space distorted here? Is there multiple versions of them? Multiple versions of them? Multiple versions? Versions? And next up, if the countryside is truly distorting time and space, is the man in the mask really behind it? Is he really able to distort an entire countryside with some sort of strange power? I mean, how would you acquire that? Is he some sort of ancient being who's roamed this place for God knows how long? Is he some eldritch horror that's secretly just using a small mortal body to hide itself? Is the countryside itself a living being, and this is simply just its almost face? This person is just its face and nothing else. It would give the mask a bit of a symbolic reason for existing. But about a year later, No Through Road 3 came out. The description isn't actually really interesting, to be honest. It just mentions that they're trying to retrieve the rest of the damaged tape, and then updated the description once they released No Through Road 4 about a month or so later. And right from the beginning, we can tell this is severely damaged, but this is the best that the editor of this video could get it to work, apparently. We see that they managed to wash up Steve's face and that he has this giant cut along his left side. As they're driving, James gets a phone call. He goes to answer it, but it's just noise.
Finally. Hello? Who was it?
I don't know, it was just a withheld number.
What did they say?
They didn't say anything.
They come back to the road with a dirt path and turn right, hoping that it will help them get out. They try it, and then they loop back again. So they decide to keep going forward when suddenly...
Jesus Christ!
They all stand silent, not knowing what to do. Steve, probably knowing how powerful or terrifying this thing is compared to Dave and James, just says one word.
Drive. Drive.
Go, 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 go!
The tape ends with them crashing the car, and look, I've tried. I have no idea what the fuck this symbol means. If anything, I assume it's essentially just a mark or a symbol to represent the man in the mask. This series did come out back when Marble Hornets was popular, and so a lot of people assume they just kind of had this to kind of match that operator symbol, but instead it's the masked man symbol. Which, like, out of everything in this series is, like, the least original part. I mean, at least with the operator symbol of Marble Hornets, it had a reason for existing. Like, it symbolized he had no face. What the fuck does this symbolize? I personally just assume the triangle kind of symbolizes his hat. But that's all I can think of. I really don't know what this could mean other than it's perhaps hinting it's an old ancient marking, and perhaps the masked man is far older than we know. After this, No Through Road 4 came out some time later, and the description just says this.
I don't know what to think anymore.
No Through Road 4 starts right after where No Through Road left off. They've crashed the car and now it won't start, and the only real option they have is to just find a way to get out. Dave recommends that they go through the tunnel and go to Stevenage, but Steve says that if Dave already hasn't picked it up, that's not gonna happen. I mean, they just went from the countryside back to the tunnel. It's clear that the man in the mask is probably going to prevent them from ever reaching Stevenage. Before the argument can really get into an actual argument, James points out that he sees a building with lights up ahead. And so, with nowhere else to go, they go there. And they are greeted with quite the sight. They go in, and it's very apparent this is no normal man's house. The walls appear to be covered in sheets and are just covered in writing. The only thing lighting up the place is just candles. And there's strange ornaments and vases and glasses everywhere. Symbols kind of similar to the one that we saw at the end of 3 decorate the walls. And although it's not stated until later, all the writing on the wall is things that they have said mainly during No Through Road 1. The one that us viewers can read that's easy to see is Time for Crunchy, which is a reference to this scene.
Except I can't move to the left. Just wait till we're on the top.
The man in the mask clearly knows everything that they've done and said, long before he even showed up in front of them physically. This means he might have been watching and listening the entire time in some strange supernatural way. In there is just this shrine or offering or some type of weird just altar of sorts with all these spare white masks that the man in the mask seems to wear. Perhaps in case he loses it, maybe his face being shown will cause some sort of horrid event, or he simply just doesn't want his face to be shown. They find this object covered in a black tarp, and upon removing it, it's a cage with meat. James decides to, for some reason, take a spare mask. They walk around and talk about how the masked man could have figured out what they said, and then they bring up the video.
Does he know these things we said?
Maybe he saw the video.
What video? What video?
Steve never saw the video, but apparently the man in the mask did, or like I said earlier, has some sort of supernatural, powerful knowledge. They go back to the tunnel and decide to hide behind the now crashed car.
It's him. is he just standing there?
The man in the mask is just standing there like he's waiting for someone, his next victim perhaps. And then eventually his next victim shows up. But if you pay attention, you realize that this series is slowly shifting into a sort of cosmic horror.
Who is it?
I don't know. What?
What is it?
Doing? No, don't. I have to. Don't go. I don't have a choice.
James! James! What?
James is gone, and he's ran away, and we don't see him again. But I have a theory for how he might still be a important character. I'll bring that up later.
Come on, what's he doing?
You said there was a film. The one from my camera. We've already done this.
What does that mean?
If you...
That means you're gonna die.
If I'm alive now, I think I could prevent it. I did it before. I think I can stop it. Okay, listen. You weren't part of this, okay?
Yeah.
You were never part of it, so stay put.
What are you doing?
I got this from the shack,
Why?
so he doesn't recognize me.
Stephen, what are you doing? Stephen!
Stephen is going to kill his past self in order to try to stop this from looping and happening all over again. We see that out of the car comes the actual man in the mask, looking for either Steve, past Steve, or Dave. Dave is somehow not spotted, and eventually runs away. He turns on the night vision in his camera in order to be able to see but not get caught, and he catches past Steve in the dark mumbling to himself, just like he did in No Through Road 1. And then we realize something very, very important.
You can't see me. Oh, you can't see me. I think I'm okay.
The man that knocked him out was never the masked man. It was himself. Steve tries to drag the past Steve to the car, and eventually past Steve wakes up. And this is where a big revelation comes in. That scene at the end of No Through Road 1, the most haunting scene where we see Steve get beaten to death with his camera, was Steve being beaten to death with his camera by Steve.
Wait! No!
Stephen? Stephen? Stephen!
The tape cuts off there. And like the video says, until there's new footage found, the No Through Road case remains both closed and open, never knowing what really happened. No Through Road is, in my opinion, cosmic horror disguised as lost footage. The fact that it's always been Steve, and it's presumably going to be Steve again, causes us to realize that this is a never-ending nightmare. Steve is going to get beaten almost to death, and then manage to survive, and then probably with the countryside warping time, 3 years for him is about an hour. And then he finds James and Dave, and the cycle repeats over and over and over. There's no end in sight. Spoilers for Little Nightmares 2, I'll put a timestamp here if you want to skip, but it really, really, really reminds me of the ending of Little Nightmares 2. How when 6 drops Mono and we see him sit in that chair, and then we slowly realize he became the Thin Man. And presuming this isn't just a new throne being offered to a new king, and that it's been Mono all along, this nightmare will never end for Mono and 6. As to how it began, we'll never know. As to how the No Through Road nightmare began, we will never know. It is simply just this horrific nightmare that never ends, and there will never be an ending. Perhaps, judging by the ending, there's multiple men in masks, multiple Steves. Maybe James became a man in the mask, but I doubt that. And speaking of James, I want to explain what I think he did after he ran away. I'd like to think that after James ran away, he somehow, in some shape or form, found a way out of the countryside. And then after this, recovered the footage from the police system or the police files, and then uploaded them onto YouTube. The first one was uploaded by the MI5 in order to try to help the families, but 2 to 4 was uploaded by James to show the world the horrors that are still going on. I think it's a lot more of a satisfying conclusion than he just ran off and fucking died. Ollie is dead, most likely. Dave is probably gonna die now, or at least become perhaps a masked man, or just go mentally insane. And Steve is going to probably become the next masked man, and thus the cycle will forever repeat. Perhaps the reason there were 4 dead bodies was in some maybe alternate timeline. This is gonna sound dumb, but perhaps a different version of the group that came into the countryside, they all died. And perhaps this camera footage was mistaken for that group. But I will never know. And to me, that's the beauty of series like No Through Road and The Backrooms and other horrific series that don't explain themselves. Because let's be honest, if it was ever explained why these things were happening, wouldn't it kind of kill the terror? Oh, well, this is happening because such and such. This is happening because this and this. That, to me, removes the fear and terror. And if this was ever explained, and we ever got some sort of maybe a 5th one that explained everything, I think it would just kill what makes this series scary. This series, to me, is horrifying. And to me, it's a little disappointing that it's been kind of just left to rot and just have dust start to coat it. Because this series, to me, is genuinely amazing. It's horrifying, the acting is amazing, and the horror is just truly disturbing. The fact that this is just never going to end truly unnerves me. And to me, No Through Road does not deserve to be forgotten. And with my sub count and the viewers that watch my video, I'm hoping you all spread the word. Spread the word of No Through Road. And make sure that this amazing story never dies. And just like how time itself seems to function in the countryside, I want No Through Road's popularity to never end.